Hello, and welcome to another Liftinstituut expert session. In this series of short video discussions, experts from all around the world share their knowledge, experience, and views on a variety of vertical transportation subjects. Today we'll be talking about international demographic and macroeconomic developments and how they affect the vertical transportation industry. And with us to discuss this, we have Jeroen Peters. He's the lead assessor at Liftinstituut. Jeroen, thank you for joining us.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I don't know what a lead assessor does. Why don't you tell us about your role at Liftinstituut and also just your history within the industry?
Okay, yeah, that's good. So as a lead assessor, Liftinstituut does for the industry and for owners of installations, depending on what project it is, we do assessments or audits to check if things are as they need to be or as expected. Although these are not formal audits as in they do or do not get a certificate, it's more like a voluntary audit where it's a bit like an internal audit, although it is often external.
Okay.
And that can be for owners of big portfolios who buy complex installations, where we check if things are as they ordered them.
Yeah.
Or for the industry themselves, if they develop something, sometimes we look at how the development cycle is going on.
Okay, interesting. Now, it's been a busy news year or decade, and how have world events affected the elevator escalator industry?
Well, I would say at large, in line with as the industry at large. So the post-COVID economic upturn has given a lot of shortage in supply chains, also in the elevator industry. That's certainly true, and escalators. And also the price increases we start seeing more and more now around the industry.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's definitely something we also see in this industry.
Yeah.
And one of the symptoms of that is that these shortages really do lead to lifts standing still or escalators standing still for long periods of time because things are not available. And I have two maybe interesting examples if I'm allowed. One is that the Dutch railways had a newsletter a couple of months ago where they said they have 450 installations, escalators and lifts combined throughout the country, and about 3% of those are standing still for a longer prolonged period because stuff is not available.
Yeah, just the parts you need. Yeah.
I was also involved with a hospital in the Netherlands where a lift was out of service for 3 months because the part was not available.
Oh no, and nothing to be done. These are very specialized parts. It's not like you can use string to fix it.
Yeah.
Oh wow. So you've got that, and then you've got globalization, which I imagine makes things worse and not better. Yeah, because you might need a part from the other side of the world. Yeah.
Yeah, well, partly globalizing the industry has partly improved stuff, but especially the supply chain side of things shows now with these developments, Ukraine war and the upturn of the economy after the COVID, as I explained. These supply chains are more at risk, and it's not that easy to get stuff from here and there, transportation-wise. But I would say that in general, the globalization of the industry in general, but also the lift industry, because when I entered the industry 32 years ago, we had European-wide product lines, and 10 years before that was not so much the case. It was still pretty much by country. It was all quite different, and then gradually we've seen codes moving more and more global, and following the codes, we see that product lines are used more global, which is good because if a product is developed for a higher number of installations, things mature much better and they are just more reliable and better. And you have the supply chains more globalized, which gives an efficiency gain, but it also has risks, as we now see. Yeah.
There's the up and down.
So there's two sides to it.
And we've talked in other expert sessions about synergy in codes and overlapping in standards that are required from one region to the next. So that has a benefit as well. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Because many codes now are more alike. So the Chinese code is pretty much alike the European one. And there's an initiative, I'm not the specialist on that, but there's an ISO 81000 code development. I don't know where it exactly stands. Peter might have talked about that.
Yeah.
if the product needs to fulfill a code, which it does, if the code is the same in many areas, you can have the same product in the same
Sure.
in these different areas.
Yeah. What do you see happening in the near future with the supply chain or with other major shifts? For example, are we going to see second-hand lifts offered on the market more often?
Well, I'm not sure if really the total lift will be second-hand, because it's not that easy to get a lift out and put it somewhere else. Because a high part of the cost is the whole installation, and you have to deinstall and then reinstall.
Right,
and so there's a lot of hours involved there. So I don't think we're going to see a lot of that. What you do see is that certain components have a certain lifespan. So interesting example is the frequency drive. That is the most common speed regulator of the lift or elevator. And that has a lifetime of 8 to 12 years, depends. The bigger ones have a bit of a longer lifespan. And that just needs to replace, let's say it needs to replace after 10 years.
Right.
This example I gave of the hospital where the lift was broken down for 3 months, that was a frequency drive.
Okay.
It was just not available.
Right.
Due to the chip shortage.
Sure.
And so it would be nice if we gradually see more of these components that are broken down, that they are taken and refurbished somehow or upcycled.
Yeah.
I think that's really a good opportunity for the industry, where you can also make things environmentally much more.
Yeah, I was going to ask about sustainability. That's a concern for every industry, for everyone these days, and is moving more in the direction of changing out components instead of replacing a lift entirely as part of a renovation or upkeep. Are we heading more in that direction?
So it's a bit different with escalators and lifts.
Okay.
But if we talk lifts first, which is a much bigger number globally, there's a habit of not replacing the lift completely, because many components you don't have to replace. The guide rails are fine to remain there, or the car. And so there's already for decades, it's quite normal to replace certain parts after certain lifespans. So the frequency drive 10 years, the control 25 years, the machine typically 30, 35 years.
Okay.
That's typical lifespans. So we already see that gradual replacement of components over time.
Yeah, so there's something inherently sustainable about a lift, because, as you say, it's such a hassle to take one out to replace it. It's just not realistic that someone would do that. So by its nature, a lift would be something where you replace components over time, and maybe your car you're riding in is decades old, and it works fine, yeah?
Correct. And if you replace components, you can also upcycle to new technologies where newer elevators regenerate energy, because half of the travel time, a lift needs to be slowed down because the counterweight is heavier.
Yes.
And if the car is not full, it will going down. You have to break it down.
Right.
Which now in modern elevators, you regenerate the energy back to the net or the building.
Right, yeah.
Which is an energy consumption positive thing.
Yeah.
Already before that technology, it was true that taking the stairs as a human, it's more efficient CO2 wise to take the elevator because of the counterweight. It's just more efficient to take the lift than to take the stairs.
Amazing.
And with the regenerative elevators, that's even more true.
Incredible, yeah. Where do you see cities going? Maybe I'm just asking about the not so near future. You know, for example, urbanization. What's the role of vertical transportation in that?
Well, I would say that urbanization has been made possible for a big part due to vertical transportation.
Sure, yeah.
Because just imagine a city like Shanghai, 17 or 20 million people, without elevators. That wouldn't be possible.
Yeah. So it's already enabled it.
So it's a big enabler of that, and as we move forward, that's going to be more and more true. The United Nations, I think, have predicted that the world will keep growing the number of people to 10 billion, where we're currently at 7 point something or so. So we keep growing, where since I was born already the number of people globally have doubled, or more than doubled.
Yeah.
So that's also the reason why we have to start thinking more and more also in our industry about how we do things more environmentally friendly and responsible.
Right, and cities, as cities grow more dense, then by nature they must grow upwards. So there will always be a role for vertical transportation.
The buildings will go up, and also the more high buildings you have, the more need you have for metro systems.
Yes.
And with metros, you have a lot of escalators need, because the people flow is so high in these stations that elevators wouldn't work. You really need escalators to do that. Yeah, so I think as cities grow bigger, metro systems grow bigger, and metro systems have a lot of, because you need escalators due to the number of people, but you also need elevators because not everyone can travel on the escalator.
Yeah.
If you're in a wheelchair or whatever. So there's a lot of installations there. So as cities grow, the number of vertical transport installations keep growing with them.
Keeps growing, yeah. And what would new cities look like as we move forward in the future? Do you foresee some kind of, famously on Star Trek, the elevators go both up and down and sideways to get you to across the USS Enterprise. Is there something like that in the future, do you think?
Yeah, well, there are some developments ongoing in the past and currently, what I hear, but I'm not sure because I don't know the latest developments of all the suppliers, but there will be probably some more integration of horizontal and vertical, where currently in some buildings, if it's a large building, both in width as in height,
yes,
you sometimes have to travel a long way in one direction and then go up and etc. Hospitals are a good example, or metro systems, and it would be much more efficient if you could go in one floor on one side of the building and then end up on the other side. But there's not currently any products released yet, as far as I'm most recently aware, but there have been some attempts on that globally, and I know there is a product where for metros in urban areas, you get in the car and then you go up over the track and down again.
Oh, fun.
So to get to the other side of the track.
Okay, so
that's an example of an existing product that does horizontal and vertical integrated.
At least one example. Well, that's an exciting thing to think about, and it's nice to know that the vertical transportation industry is not something you normally think about in battling climate change, for example, but it's interesting to see how it's a minor factor in helping to adapt to the new reality.
Yeah, there's a role here for the industry as well.
Yeah, fantastic.
Sure.
Jeroen, thank you for sharing your views and coming on the show with us.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us at home for another Liftinstituut expert session. You can find more of our expert sessions on our YouTube channel. So go to YouTube, search for Liftinstituut, and click subscribe. And also, Liftinstituut expert sessions are a podcast. If you open your favorite podcast app and search for Liftinstituut, you will find us there as well. Let us know in the comments if there's a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future expert session, and we will see you there. Bye-bye.